For thousands of years, we have existed here and now. That vengeance is destroy them! Now is the time.
Hey, what are those big things?
Demonic beasts?
Initiate all that remain!
In the Fire Home series, the Agarthans are a nation of people that are in conflict with the Nabateans throughout the lore of Three Houses. The Agarthans are led by a group that call themselves those who slither in the dark, and the lore behind this subterranean civilization is honestly fascinating. But if you clicked on the title of this video, then you know why you're here, and it's not because of their lore. Since they've likely been beneath the earth for at least a millennium, it has made a permanent change on their physiology. What kind of changes would those be? Let's find out. To start, it's important to address the elephant in the room, so let's talk about the sun. Praise it, set fire to it, you name it, the sun is important for life on Earth as we know it. For humans, the sun is responsible for getting vitamin D into our systems, and it's more notably known for helping plants make oxygen. As you'd expect, if there's no sun where you are, then there's no feasible way to farm plants. This is a big thing since it would be difficult, if not impossible, to have a society without sunlight. And it's within the realm of possibility that there were likely entire generations that have never seen the sun in Fodlan. Yes, it's possible that some earlier Agarthans went out to forage for food while out on the surface, but it's also possible they didn't need to. What do I mean by this? Well, I have a theory. You know those giant crawler monsters? If you don't or forgot, they are massive worm monsters that give thanks to their massive size because of an unnatural amount of magic they absorbed. Now, what do these have to do with Agarthan survival? Well, when you break the armor on a crawler, the ore they give is Agarthium, which is what you'll also find on a Titanus. Titanuses? Titanine? Whatever. They're massive golems that the Agarthans built. My conclusion is that the Agarthans may have relied on these giant crawlers in order to get the food and materials they needed for survival. While in the main game they can only show up in the desert in Strang, these worms can live underground, as the Cindered Shadows DLC shows in the first chapter, where Happy Sai summons a worm or two. Now that we know a way about how the Agarthans could have found a way to build their cities, what's next is to figure out how their bodies could have adapted to the lack of sunlight. Consider that, in the real world, we have examples of animals that theoretically serve as an idea on how they could live out their lives. Our example will be animals like cave salamanders, a group of animals that primarily or exclusively live in caves. This describes the Agarthans to the T. Well, maybe not the salamander part, but that the Agarthans primarily or exclusively live in the absence of the sun. Therefore, we can see what traits these cave salamanders took up to survive in their environments. One characteristic of many cave salamanders is that their vision is either really basic or non-existent in the first place. By this logic, we can assume that the Agarthans may have relied on the other sense like scent and or hearing about as much as sight. But considering that Shambhala and Agarthan City has some artificial lighting in it, the chances of them having no vision altogether is likely 0%. But as I said, they probably don't use sight as much as we do. Continuing on that path, many cave salamanders lose pigment in their skin compared to other salamanders, leaving it to be a white or a pale color. We can see this in the Agarthans, who are pale, either purely white like Talus or having a hint of blue like Kranya or Solon. However, while making the script for this video, I wish that the games explained a bit more on how active they were. For normal people, if they spend too much time indoors without sunlight, they get a vitamin D deficiency, which can get them to grow tired, less active, and depressed. This is because sunlight is what triggers the brain to stop making melatonin, the sleeping chemical, and to start producing serotonin, a chemical that makes people happier. This means that the first few generations of Agarthans may not have had as much motivation to do anything as the later generations, but due to how advanced the Agarthans were, it's entirely possible that they were able to make devices that could replicate ways in our world that reduce sunlight deficiency. Even so, said devices likely couldn't beat real sunlight in eliminating the problem altogether. Whatever the case is, it must have taken the Agarthans a long time to finally get the motivation to go after the Nabateans once again, after they lost the first time around. In short, the Agarthans are an interesting case of how and where humanity could have taken a turn if some things went differently. If earlier on in humanity's history there was a tribe that exclusively lived on or by the water, it's entirely possible that their descendants may be part aquatic, and we wouldn't know where they are. Thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all the next time I feel like uploading.